सेकंड फंक्शनल, ठीक है, एक स्ट्रक्चरल एक फंक्शनल, फ्योल, देन इकोनॉमिक रैशनल, who are the contributors? Most of them who are classical, traditional, most of them. Then structural, functional, economic, rational, or scientific management. Given by? Then management process, administrative management, also known as management process school. Supporters? Human relations movement. Given by Mayo. Mayo and several others. Okay. Then situational approach. Though it was not part of this model, but ideologically it was different, so we had written it separately. It is not part of the traditional model, but because it was present during this phase. Okay. Situational or सिचुएशनल किसने दिया अभी? बिफोर Weber. Fine. So logically, this is not part of this. Okay, because here the ideology is of positivism. Okay, but because it is, or it was the development during this phase only between 1900 to 1940s or 30s. Okay, so we assume or we include this under this model only. Okay, that means the theoretical development, okay, distinct from this but present during that era only. Fine. What were the functional developments? Now this is also important. Okay, because this was basically conceptual development taking place in the discipline. How the society was changing. Okay. Laissez-faire state, capitalist state, transforming towards welfare state. Okay. Then already we had discussed the spoil system. Okay. Great Depression. World Wars. Almost till 1950, both the world wars. Mostly with respect to America only we are talking. Okay. Even though these developments were taking place in Europe and US both. Okay. But our study is confined to this. Pabat study is confined mostly to European or the American or dominantly American in nature. So 2 world wars, then what else happened? Cold War, correct. Okay. Racial discrimination था, civil rights movement, Okay. Huge conflict in the American society regarding the equal opportunities of whites and blacks. Okay. मार्टिन लूथर किंग और ये सब तो इसी टाइम के हैं. और क्या हुआ? करेक्ट. तो पोस्ट 45 दी non-Western type democracies or variety of developing countries. Okay. So all these functional developments, okay, they also required some theoretical knowledge. No. 80s. Globalization started when Vasco da Gama started searching for new land. Okay. But that cannot be considered as the actual globalization. When the ancient Silk Route was created, globalization started then. India was one of the biggest traders of muslin, cotton, okay, spices. So globalization had started, but that cannot be taken as the globalization. The actual globalization starts post the Washington Consensus. Fine. So you see, logically, what was the transformation going on in the American society? Okay, it was like a melting pot. What is a melting pot? Multiple cultural aspects, social aspects, and the pot itself melts. Okay, the logic is melting pot is that. Okay, that means what? The society is also undergoing transformation. Okay, and there are so many social aspects which are also undergoing transformation. Okay, so it was like a melting pot. Okay. And America was turning into a cosmopolitan society. Because people from immigrations, migrants, people from variety, the very famous phrase is used for this, the great American dream. Okay, gold chase, सुना है भाई कभी? ठीक है, इस फेज को बोला जाता है इन द अमेरिकन कॉन्टेक्स्ट इट इज कॉल्ड एस एवरीथिंग विल बी नॉट इन नोट्स. योर नोट्स विल बी गिवन बाय नेक्स्ट वीक. ओके, मंडे और ट्यूसडे दे विल बी गिविंग टू यू. ओके, देयर आर ऑलमोस्ट 20-24 बुकलेट्स आर देयर, बट ऑल आर सप्लीमेंटरी टू द क्लास. So whatever factual content you require, you will get it, but don't expect the analysis in the book. Not possible. Okay, because analysis is from probably 30 books. I cannot write all of that in the notes. So your class notes is primary and supplementary material is the supplementary. So I'll keep telling you what to read from that material. Okay. This phase is also known as phase of baby boomers in US. Many of the war veterans had returned back. Now they started living a settled life. Okay, so it was humorously known as the phase of baby boomers also. Okay, expansion of population, variety of needs emerged. Industrialization was not able to cater to variety of needs which were there, housing, civic amenities, number of things. Okay, municipal services. So functionally also the American society was changing. Okay. Theoretically, the public administration was also evolving, but it was not possible for the theory to match the practice. Now see, in reality, the administration will have to deal with these things. Now theory correspondingly is not able to provide everything. Why? Because theory is more obsessed with the science of public administration. Okay. rational study of public administration as organization. Whereas what public administration has to perform as function, this aspect was missing in the theory. So even during this phase, we assume that public administration emerged as a science, as an evolved, or it was moving towards a evolved discipline, but it could not become one. Why? Because it could not provide the solutions to the problems of the society. It provided intellectual stimulation, no doubt. Okay, it created a content worth studying, or it created a vision, okay, regarding public administration as a subject, but it could not provide the concrete guidelines how to solve the problems of society. Okay, and during this phase also there was, okay, this is an important aspect, but did not impact that time. Its impact was felt after 20-30 years, but this development is equally important. Okay, the growth of multilateral institutions, the World Bank, IMF, United Nations, or League of Nations, which was there. Okay. GATT, which changed to WTO later. Okay. Number of regional cooperations emerged, non-aligned movement, agreement of Panchsheel. Various developments were taking place, not necessarily in the Western countries, but also in the developing countries also. Okay, they were also influencing the study. So correspondingly, by 1950s and 60s, the theory building in public administration changed from what it was initially. Okay, because it had to incorporate these changes which were taking place globally. Okay, and the emergence of the developing countries was itself a big force, a big driving force behind the study of the developing societies. Why? Why developing societies suddenly became important? No, that is fine. But why should the study of developing societies be incorporated into the study of? I mean, they would become an interest of the Western scholars. Why? So it was only economic. Also, why it attracted this attention of the Western scholars? No, that is fine. I am asking in practical sense. Right. You can say that the industrial revolution was almost matured in those countries. Saturation had almost come. Okay. So they wanted to find new destinations for raw materials, for labor, okay, and also because of the Cold War, two major blocks developed, the communist and the capitalist bloc. And most of the resources or the products or the industrial development was in the capitalist countries. So they wanted to influence or use this economic growth as the influence over the developing countries. Okay. So it was more motivated by political realism, okay, than by the ideology of equality. Okay, that these are the freed countries now, we are independent and you all are sovereign, so we will find an amicable relationship or develop an amicable relationship. That was not the purpose. The purpose was political realism. Okay, there was a changing nature of equation of power at the global level. Okay, so that was one of the motivating or driving forces behind incorporating the study of the non-Western democracies, non-Western societies in the study of either the political science or the public administration. Okay. Also, many of these developing countries were supported by the developed economies. Okay. So they also wanted to know that money or resource which we are giving, okay, the aid which we are giving, okay, how this aid can be utilized to create further economic growth. How our technology, our resource, okay, can be put to better use and get more income or earn more revenue so that we can also profit. Okay, their markets were already saturated, so the developing country with almost, or the entire Asian continent itself, with almost 1/6 of the entire population of the world, was itself one of the biggest destination for the products of the Western countries. So lots of consumers, lots of clients, okay. Emergence of big corporates during that time, okay. So they were also, because it was a capitalist state, they were influencing the Western states to promote such kind of policies where the developing countries could become the destinations for investment and technology and products and so many things. So economics, politics, both were the driving force, and the third was obviously the power. Okay. So all these changes, okay, they took place obviously within this phase. Okay, 1927, though not necessarily this is the cutoff date, but 1920s you can take to 1920s. Okay, theoretically we use a date 27 to 37, 37 to 47, 47 to 50. Okay. With respect to theoretical development, but yes, socio-political developments which were taking place, this was one of the most vibrant phase. After this, many of the relationships, many of the groups, okay, which emerged, they almost settled down after 1960s. Most of the developing countries went for non-alignment, major developing countries. Most of the blocs who wanted to align with the communists aligned with the communists. Vietnam War was one of the indications of that. Okay. Okay, and various types of conflicts which emerge. Emergence of Japan as a powerful nation in the Asian region. Okay, that is also an important event. Okay, because Japan was, in spite of being nuked, it emerged as one of the most powerful economies. Okay, so that was something like a silver lining for the developing countries. Okay, directly a transition from monarchy to a democracy and directly to a developed country. So that was not an easy transition. It became a role model for many of the developing countries. Then the progression or economic growth in the Southeast Asia by using a different model, being non-democratic but economically prosperous. Okay, so it impacted the societies not only in the developing countries but also across the world. Okay, even the US and the Europe, which were the major power blocks till then, they also changed. Their relationship with the rest of the world transformed. Russia emerged as a powerful country, or USSR, whatever you say. Okay, China was also becoming powerful. So this changed the entire equation. So functionally, okay, or socially, various developments were taking place. Okay, not probably duly incorporated into theory, but theoretically, okay, this phase was more obsessed with the science or the principles of administration. Okay, around 1950s they changed. Okay, ये clear है इतना? Have you written it? Okay. Will you remember this? Fine. Okay, so now let us take this one by one. Okay, structural. Let us first understand the meaning of something being structural. We have already discussed that there can be two kinds of structures. One the physical and another the analytical structure. Okay, what is the meaning of a structure? Structure which is patterned, okay, which has a form, and this form is duly recognizable. Okay, now what is the logic? So people who are called structuralists, okay, now these people were concerned with the study of the structure of organization. Okay, because they were influenced by, most of them, influenced by public administration or administration as an organization. So what they wanted to study? They wanted to study the structure of the organization. Okay. When I am saying structure of the organization means what? Mostly concerned with the physical, legal, economic. Okay. They were mostly concerned with the study of organization with respect to its physical aspect, legal aspect, that is power, authority, rule, regulation, procedure, economic aspect, that is budgetary, resource allocation, distribution of resource, incentives, so on, so on, so on. So the structuralists identified or tried to study administration as an organization, and in that the structure of the organization. Now what was their purpose? Okay. So they wanted to study the structure. Okay. Now as all of them were inspired by the science, okay, or influenced by the positivism. Okay. They all were influenced by the positivism, so they were in search for all of them were in search for the best or the ideal structure. That what can be the best or the ideal or the most rational, most empirical, most factual structure of the organization. That means that, okay, now see what was their purpose. That how best or the most ideal form of organization can be achieved. That how are we going to achieve the best form of organization, the best structure of the organization. Now what does the best structure mean? That there will be something, the most scientific manner of arranging things within an organization. Okay, let me simplify it. Let us say that this is a space. Okay. So I can say, okay, I have an organization, but my organization physically looks like this. Okay. Now if I have to arrange my organization, then it will be at both the levels. Okay, in terms of the human beings, okay, and also in terms of the design. Okay, so I can physically design this particular area, okay, by using the most rational means, the most rational architecture. Okay. And I can say that, okay, this design is the ideal. There is no other design which can be more efficient than this design. I can do that. And I can also arrange the resources, okay, in the most ideal manner. Whether human, whether material, whether economic, I can arrange all of them also and say this is the best possible arrangement, and any arrangement which is not this is wasteful. This is the only efficient, most rational arrangement. Are you understanding this? So these people, they were in search for this most ideal or most rational or efficient, you can say, the efficient arrangement of things, humans, resources within the organization. And that is why they were called structuralists. Why? Because once it is arranged in the most scientific manner, is it likely to change? No. It is going to be permanent because it is scientific, it is empirical, nothing is better than this. Then why should it be changed? Are you getting this point? So they were looking for the definite structure, the definite form of arrangement, okay, beyond which no other empirical arrangement is possible. So they started looking for that. And to do that, they started developing principles. Okay. Their perception was also influenced by the idea that organization is organization. If we look for the most ideal form of organization, then anybody, anywhere can use that form because it is the ideal. Okay. Now there is no if and doubt about the structure. So if you want to use it in public, use it in public. If you want to use it in private, use it in private. The outcome will be the best because it is best. Are you getting this point? Okay, so they started, or their driving force was this, that how we can achieve this ideal form. Okay. This ideal form can only be achieved when the men, material, machine, etc. are arranged when all these are arranged empirically and rationally. A pattern which is the most or which leads to most efficient outputs. So how we can arrange this men, material, okay, machine or etc. the resources empirically and rationally into a pattern which leads to the most efficient outputs. So they wanted what? The efficiency. The driving force was the efficiency. Okay. And the efficiency can only be achieved when we find that ideal arrangement. Okay. So technically they were looking for what? They were focused on ends or means? Means. They identified if we have the most rational means, the end will be the efficient. So efficiency was end, no doubt. But what was the study or the scope of study? The scope of the study was the means. Okay. So if we simplify it, that their end was efficiency, and to achieve this end, the means was the ideal rational organization. So this ideal rational organization would become the means to achieve the most efficient ends. Okay. And you can imagine that way, that okay, if I find and if I say this is the best pen, then you would say, okay, this best pen would ultimately lead to a good answer or the best answer. So I already assume that, okay, what is the purpose? A good answer or the best answer. But this purpose cannot be fulfilled unless I search the best pen. Okay. So we cannot say that they never talked about the end. Okay, they were talking about the end, but their end was efficiency. Their end was not justice. Okay. Or you can understand this way, that whatever be the end, if the means is most efficient, then that end will be most efficient. Okay, they understood that way. That if we create the best means, the best organization, the best principles, the most scientific principles, then ultimately whatever we'll try to achieve through that means, it will be the best. So if the democracy uses that organization as an administration, then whatever it wants to achieve, it will achieve, and it will be the best. If the economics wants to use this organization as a private sector or as an industry, then whatever it wants to achieve will be the best. If a religious organization wants to include or use it for other purpose, then whatever it wants to achieve will be the best. Okay. That is what Fayol. Fayol was one of the biggest structuralists. Taylor, even though he was not talking about the entire organization, but Taylor was also a structuralist. Weber, okay, the pioneer, okay, or you can say not the pioneer, but the epitome of the structuralists was the Weber. So what are they? They were basically looking for that design. That how we can develop this design irrespective of the context. It doesn't matter what you want to serve, what end you want to achieve, that end will be efficiency. Okay, what is the content of that end, we are not concerned. Whatever be the content, okay, it will be efficient if you use this means. So the structuralists started looking for the principles. Okay. You've written this? So in the search for the ideal or the most rational form of the organization, they started developing principles. Anything can be rational if it is based on scientific evaluation. Okay, that was their logic. Okay, so all these structuralists, they started looking for the facts of the organization. Facts of the organization. Okay, based on these facts or the empirical study, based on this study, we can develop the principles. Okay, because they are empirical, they will be universal. Because they are based on facts, facts won't change whether you go from this society to that society, whether you change one context to another. So they are saying once we have identified the facts of this organization empirically and we develop the principles, these principles will become universal. Now it will become science. But try to understand, they were only concerned with the structure. Okay. They were not much concerned with the function. Function means what? Function is equity, justice, okay. Rule of law has to be delivered, protection has to be done, minorities need to be protected against majority, and so on and so forth. So what? They confined themselves to the study of organization with respect to structure, and that too the internal aspects, not the external aspects. Have you understood this much? So in fact for them, the study or the organization was like a technique. If the technique is well developed, based on logical and scientific facts and analysis, then this technique can be used anywhere. Okay. So they assume the study of organization to be something like the study of the techniques of management. And how these best techniques can be developed so that these techniques are unquestionable in nature. Once we develop these techniques, now we can use it, okay, for whatever purpose we require. Okay. So they confined their study to the internal aspects of the organization. As it was universal, this study was, or it did not consist of the context. For them, the context was not important. Okay. Be it public or private. Okay. Be it democracy or whatever. They were not much concerned with that. Okay. Because they were trying to bring or develop universal principles. Context was immaterial for them. Okay. As these principles were based on facts, okay, they were also known as value neutral. It was a value neutral generic study. Value neutral devoid of facts, devoid of values, and generic because it was generalizable. Okay. Now how do we do an empirical study? They talked about empirical, but they did not give a method. That how do we conduct this empirical study? How do we find out the facts of the organization? Okay. So most of the facts or most of the knowledge which they developed, okay, this knowledge was drawn out of experiences. Okay, you give and it is true for most of the traditional theorists. Most of them. Okay, they did not have a methodology how to acquire facts. At least I will talk about some instruments, some scales, some graphs, okay, some pre-assumed concepts, okay, some interrelationship, okay, variable changes. I will talk about these things if I have to do an experiment. What will be my scope of study? Okay, what is the size of population? What is the size of sample? I have to study all that. So even though they were influenced by positivism, they talked about empirical study, they did not develop any methodology. That was their drawback. That how to study, what were the principles they came up with that. But how did they arrive at these principles, it was not clear. So most of the knowledge that emerged, okay, during this phase by structuralists or by functionalists or most of the traditional theorists, okay, this was based on their own experiences, observation, okay. Heuristic knowledge, something like trial and error. Secondary sources or secondary data. What is the secondary data? One is that you collect out of your experiment directly, that is of primary data. Secondary data, which data is already compiled or collated somewhere. Okay, maybe a library, a museum, an archive, okay, or the data from an industry or something which is already there. So most of the knowledge developed out of secondary sources or secondary data. Now, can you call this as empirical? Not by the, or not if we use the ideal meaning of the term empirical, we cannot say. Okay, but it was definitely empirical. Why? Because prior to this, people did not even do that much also. Okay, most of the knowledge was basically guesswork. Most of the knowledge was philosophy. But because PubMed was philosophy in action, again, PubMed क्या action part है philosophy का, politics is the philosophy part, the administration is the action part. So it was philosophy in action. So logically at least they tried to develop certain assumptions, develop certain theories, okay, based on some scientific guidelines. So we cannot say that they were totally empirical or rational in that regard. Okay. Because of this, what happened? They neglected so many things, okay, or neglected the human aspect. Okay. Because the human aspect was subject to the most deviation. It was one of the biggest factors for deviation in the study of or acquisition of the empirical knowledge. So they deliberately neglected the human aspect. It was not that they did not know, but they had to neglect the human aspect because they did not have the methodology. First of all, the scientific knowledge in social sciences was not developed. There were no techniques of social sciences till that time. Methodology was not that developed. Okay, so they could not study the human aspect. Human aspect was a highly dynamic aspect. They would have needed to study so many things if they studied the human aspect. So what they did, they very safely neglected the human aspect. Okay. But obviously they studied the human beings. But what? Merely as one of the factors. Not as the important factor, but as a secondary factor. That means what? Let us say that way. That they designed the best organization, this is the chair. Now obviously somebody of my size is difficult to sit in this chair. Okay. But what they said, this is the most rational chair, it doesn't matter what is your size, you have to fit in there. So the humans were designed or modified, manipulated according to the design they created. The design was not changed according to human being. So humans never found a primary place in the study of the traditional theorists. Neither their behavior, neither their attitude, psychology, nothing was studied because it was not required by them. And also there was an absence of methodology and knowledge. Okay, they did not feel the need that if we have to design a good organization, okay, there is a need to study the human being. There is no need. Okay. So humans are manipulative, humans are moldable, and once the structure is created, okay, we can fit the human beings just like nuts and bolts. So, what is the purpose? The purpose is to look for the design. Okay. So they neglected the human aspect. Okay. So methodology, okay, was never around the human beings or study of humans. Okay, or human beings studied as humans as one of the dependent variables or factors. That means what? The humans could be subjected to change, but the humans cannot bring the change. Okay. So the human being was not considered to be autonomous enough to impact the structure, because structure was the most rational and ideal structure. So it was the structure which could impact the human being, not the vice versa. So what was the assumption? The assumption was that human beings' capability to influence the organization or to bring their values or subjective aspect into the organization is restricted by the structure itself. So the design is so empirical. Okay, the procedure, rule, regulation is so rational that whatever your subjective aspects are, what are your individual emotional aspects are there, they cannot influence the organization. Now that is the logic of a structure. A structure is a kind of design, it is the most rational design where the individual values, individual emotions, individual psychology cannot influence the structure. Are you getting this point? So if individuals cannot influence the structure, it is immaterial that where the structure is used. Use it anywhere. Socio-cultural values, emotion, religion, nothing can influence the structure. That means what? Irrespective of the culture, irrespective of the context, wherever you use it, the structure would yield the same result. Are you understanding this? So the neglect of the human factor may be deliberate, may be non-deliberate, but the result was same. They neglected the human factor. Okay. Maybe they might be knowing that the moment we study human or human factor, human aspects, that very moment we will never be able to arrive at a structure of the organization. We'll have to design and redesign the structure again and again. So what is the ideal structure? We'll never come to know. So they had to exclude this study. Okay. Or maybe they did not even know that human beings are that important part of the organization. Are you getting this point? So structuralists like Weber, Taylor, Fayol, Gulick, Ervik, okay, most of them, they all had these assumptions when they were developing their principles. Okay. Have you understood this much? Okay. You write 2-3 lines. Right. Structure is a pre-designed framework. Structure is a pre-designed framework based on factual and empirical analysis. Based on factual and empirical analysis. Empirical analysis which helps us to achieve a predefined objective. The structure provides an ordered way of doing things. An ordered way of doing things. In fact, structure is the most stable aspect of the organization. Structure is the most stable aspect of the organization. It is concerned with the study and arrangement. It is concerned with the study and arrangement of physical, legal, and economic aspects of the organization. It assumes that an ideal structure exists. It assumes that an ideal structure exists, and through empirical evaluation it can be discovered. Okay, human factor is generally neglected. Human factor is generally neglected because it includes subjective elements. It includes subjective elements like emotions, values, culture, attitudes, sentiments, etc. Okay, these structuralists included the humans into the study, but only as a factor of production. To use a phrase, लिखिए आगे. To use a phrase from one of the traditional theorists, as within quotes, you write, as within quotes, fitting the horse before the cart. As fitting the horse before the cart. That means the cart was not designed for the horse, but the horse had to be fitted into the cart. Okay. So human Though no doubt they were studied, okay, but they were studied merely as a factor of production, nothing beyond that. So we cannot call these structural theories as being humanist in nature. Humanist is what? Which studies the human beings, okay, and their various aspects and dimensions to improve the lives of the human beings. That is not the purpose. There, the purpose was what? The efficiency. Efficiency where? Wherever to be used. Okay, mostly influenced by the Industrial Revolution. We have already discussed that. So under this, the structuralist purpose was what? To design the best form of organization which can increase the industrial productivity. This industrial productivity will lead to economic growth. Economic growth will lead to various other benefits for the society. Okay. So their pre-assumptions were what? That people are the manipulative or people are manipulable. We can easily manipulate people. And how we can manipulate people? By creating a rational structure. Fit these people into that structure. How to fit them? Obviously, pay them money and they can be fitted. So what they assume? That organizations will be designed in such a manner that they satisfy the economic needs of the people, nothing else. Our purpose is economic, that is productivity and efficiency. Their purpose is also economic. They are coming into the organization to earn money, get wages, fulfill their economic needs. Let us fulfill those needs, nothing else is required. So no need to design the organization according to somebody's cultural, mental, emotional, whatever needs. That is not required. The organization must be designed only to fulfill certain economic needs. Okay, it has an economic obligation towards the people in the organization and nothing else. This was also an assumption in the structural theories. So create a system of incentive, salary, payments, bonus, whatever. Do it, okay, and this person will be motivated and inspired to work or fit into your structure. How many hours you want, you can make him work, give him money, he'll go. So he's not coming into the organization to fulfill his other needs and desires. He's only coming into the organization to fulfill his economic needs and desires. Simple. Are you getting this point? Is it or not? सही है कि नहीं है? You are entering into the civil services. What is your primary target? The primary target is security. And what security? Economic security. Career security. What else? The rest of the targets can be initiated only after once this is filled. है कि नहीं? भूखे पेट तो भाई भजन गोपाला भी नहीं होता है कि नहीं? तो ये तो लॉजिकल है. The war is not fought with the arms. Okay. Or wars cannot be fought on empty stomach. There is a very famous saying. Okay. So logic hai that their assumption was not wrong. Okay. But their assumption was highly crude in nature. Maybe because their understanding of the human being was quite inferior, or maybe not that scientific and empirical, okay, or elementary in nature, or probably they do not want or never wanted to entertain the human being or human factor, okay, as an important ingredient in the organization. It can be both. Okay. Because we cannot say that they did not understand the utility of human being. Fine. So the study did not focus on this. Purpose was to design the structure, and for this structure they started looking for the principles. Okay. So they stumbled upon, through their experiences, observation, okay, maybe by acquiring some secondary data which already existed in the industries, through some statistical evaluation, okay, they came down to certain principles of organization. Okay, let us first deal with those, okay, principles. So what were the principles which could create the best structure? Principles of the structure of the organization. Okay. So let us understand what is an organization. What is an organization? You are organizing something and you are giving it a concrete shape. Okay, you are defining certain things, making it definite. Okay, and a pattern is established. That is an organization. But what is family an organization? Yes. You have certain things organized, certain do's and don'ts are there, certain cause and effect relationship is created. Okay, so you create it deliberately. Family is called as natural organization. Why? तो उसका कोई पर्पस तो होता नहीं है. पर्पस होता है कोई प्री डिफाइंड पर्पस? You think Modi is not secured? Yogi is not secured. Why family is called a natural society or natural organization? But the driving force, the main bond is what? It is the bond of consanguinity, that is blood. ठीक है, वहां पे बॉन्ड क्या है? ब्लड है भाई. ठीक है, रिलेशनशिप का ड्राइविंग फोर्स क्या है? इमोशन. ओके, बायोलॉजिकल, फिजियोलॉजिकल, बट नॉट प्राइमरली इकोनॉमिक. Economic may be one of the functions being performed by the family. Okay, but it is not the basis of the creation of the family. Okay. So generation to generation, how people are recruited into the family. Okay. So there are no external recruitments. They are all internal recruitments. If you take family, okay, the incentive is not according to the work, but according to the status one occupies in the family. Okay. So it does not have the formal elements. Okay. So we can distinguish between. Okay. So let us first try to define organization. What? Organization is something that we create to achieve the purpose that we want or to achieve some common purpose. So maybe one person can make an organization? No. So at least two people are required to create an organization. So we can say two or more than two people, when they come together, okay, with a common purpose in mind, and to fulfill that common purpose, they create the system or design something, what you can call an organization. If they design a system to achieve the predefined goal or the end which they want, or collective goal which they want, okay, then it can be called as organization. But organizations can be big or small. The purpose can be limited to something like some goals of few, 2, 3, 4 individuals, or the purpose can be as large as the society. The purpose can be as big as the country. It can be anything. So starting from micro to macro to supra, something number of goals can be there. Based on that, the size and the complexity of the organization will change. So as the goal will change or the nature of goal will change, the nature of organization